passing them out, etc. Our speaker today is somebody who serves on the town board of aldermen, I think they call it here. And I think you ought to change that to alderpersons, because women are on that board as well.
Yes.
And Pat Sledge has a long history of service, not only herself, but her family here in Rowan County and in other places as well. She is one of the key people in trying to see to it that North Carolina pushes for and gets the ERA put in place nationwide. That's an Equal Rights Amendment. And Pat's going to tell you about what it's like. Come on up here, Pat. What is it like to get elected to a town council and then trying to figure out, oh my goodness, now what? I got elected. Help!
Take it away, Pat.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you all for being here.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Speak in the microphone.
Is that better?
Yes.
You're both close to it.
Okay. Thank you all for Jeffrey for the introduction, and all of you for being here. I was told by folks sitting across from me that Jeffrey had spoken very highly of me, so I hope I won't disappoint you this morning. I said I filed, I campaigned, I won. Now what? How did I get here? I came to Spencer and bought a home here in July of 2018. I'd never run for political office, but as a member of Business and Professional Women of North Carolina for 38 years, I had been involved with visiting elected representatives at the local level in Raleigh and also in DC to lobby for issues that had impact primarily on women and their families and children. But through that organization, I got to know women who were elected officials, city council women, county commissioners, and actually our Secretary of State, Elaine Marshall. I'd served on boards with them, helped with campaigns, phone banking, canvassing, and after working with a grassroots group to get President Obama elected, I was honored to be tapped by Valerie Jarrett to convene a group of citizens and business leaders to perform a needs assessment for the Piedmont area. One of our top priorities was that we sent to the president was the replacement of the Yadkin River Bridge. Those plans had been in place for a long time, but had been stalled for many years. In 2010, after his election, I attended the groundbreaking ceremony conducted by the NCDOT and Governor Beverly Perdue, who was also a member of BPW at the time. So I feel like that group was somewhat responsible in getting the process started to get that Yadkin River Bridge finally replaced here in Rowan County. I had been in regular contact with my state senator and with my House of Representative member, who was a woman who had been a social worker before she was elected to office. She was passionate about animal rights. After some contacts with her about issues that were important to me, through phone calls, through visits, through letters and emails, she emailed back to me one day and said she would no longer reply to me because it looked like we would never see eye to eye. I remember thinking, you were voted to represent me. I thought it was sad that she cared more about animals than the people that she had been elected to represent. And I also thought I could probably do a better job than she did, but I didn't consider running for office at that time. After living in Davidson County for 41 years, I moved back to Rowan, and shortly after buying my house in Spencer, I was invited to a neighbor's home in Spencer for a precinct organizing meeting. And I just thought, well, this will be an opportunity for me to meet some of the local folks, so I decided to go. Members of that group are sitting here in this audience today. And they're the ones who asked me if I would consider running for office. Well, I called one of my friends from BPW who was a town council member down east, who was a city council person in a little town about the same size as Spencer. And so I asked her what was involved. Well, she gave me some of the basic information and told me she'd send me some more stuff. And when I got it, what she sent me was a link to the North Carolina Dam's Plan of Operations, the POO. And it was 50 pages of rules and regulations. And I thought, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? But I think I talked to somebody here, maybe Jeffrey, I'm not sure whether it was Jeffrey or one of my precinct people, but anyway, they said, oh, don't worry about that. You don't really need to know all that stuff. So I did decide to go ahead and run. When I got ready to file for requirements for the Board of Elections, the information about filing is on the website. So, with the help of the local folks of the precinct and some of the people here in the county, I stumbled through the first part of it. Filing fees in Rowan County range from $5 to $10 for most seats, with Kannapolis being the one location that has the highest filing fee, which is $30 for their mayor. But I filed on the first day of filing in early July of 2019. And by the time filing closed 14 days later, there were 10 people running for the 6 seats in Spencer. There had been, the last couple of years, a lot of contention and a lot of infighting among the among the Board of Aldermen in Spencer. And I think everybody was kind of fed up with what was going on there. From information provided by the local Board of Elections, I learned that you have to have a campaign treasurer. And so you can actually do that yourself. And I did the paperwork and thought, well, I could handle that. It's a required course online, and I took it and completed that certification. But shortly after that, I told some of my friends that I was planning to run, and one of my friends in Greensboro said, well, I'll be your campaign treasurer for you. So that was very, very helpful and very kind of her. She is an accountant, and she has served as campaign treasurer for a number of occasions and has actually run for office herself. But I made the decision to keep my campaign cost under the $1,000 threshold. It simplifies all the paperwork and everything else that you have to do for campaign finance. And I have never asked for donations or contributions. In full disclosure, I did receive 2 checks, $50 each, from a cousin of mine who lives in Mecklenburg County and one in Nashville, Tennessee. And the only other contribution I got was a $10 bill from a local woman who sent it to me in an envelope. The U.S. Postal Service sells blank postcards, and I bought some of those and hand wrote those to unaffiliated women voters living in the Spencer area, asking them to vote for me. I thought, maybe the Democrats would support me, but if I could get some of these unaffiliated women to vote for me as well, that might give me an edge. The list I used came from the local Board of Elections via email, and I was able to sort the list by gender and by party registration. So I just hand wrote those postcards and mailed them out to those ladies. I got a note back from one of those women. I had addressed one to her and to her mother, and that's where the $10 bill came. Along with a couple of the other members of the precinct and Democratic candidates and the candidate who would become our mayor, we walked door to door handing out information and asking people to vote for us over a couple of weekends prior to the elections. Our precinct chair and vice chair, Ed Hull, put together voter information for us that we were able to distribute in this last election. And I thank those folks who support me every step of the way and all they do to help. As I said earlier, I decided to keep my campaign under $1,000. So in my first run for office, I spent just over $800 of my own money. I bought campaign signs, I had a brochure done, and I had these little buttons done, and I still have some of them if any of you would like to have one at some point. But it says my campaign theme has get involved, is and will be, get involved, you live here. And I also accepted every invitation to speak or serve on a panel anywhere I could during that period of time. Also went to the local businesses in Spencer and asked those business owners what they thought the Spencer government needed to do to improve that. I worked at the Rowan County Fair, greeting people there and handing out Democrat information for all the candidates who were running. I worked at the early voting site out at the Board of Elections and outside the polling place in Spencer on election day. In this most recent election, I worked at some of the other polling places supporting other Democrats because I was running unopposed in Spencer and felt that maybe I could be more service somewhere else rather than there in the Spencer precinct. At the end of election day in 2019, I came out 9 votes ahead of the person who finished in 7th place for the 6th seat. So if anybody tells you that their vote doesn't matter, use me as an example. And one of my friends told me, said, well, if you hadn't voted for those other people, you would have had a higher margin. But I also voted for the people I thought would be the best for the candidates for our town. Didn't think about, I was giving them another vote. But in the last election, there were only 6 people who were on the board. We had 2 newcomers, 4 incumbents, but I didn't finish at the bottom this last time. When the votes were certified, the new board members are notified and the mayor was notified and that some training was required. And there was 1 incumbent and the rest of us were brand new. And so this was before the COVID shutdown, and so we spent a full day learning and presented by the UNC School of Government and the North Carolina League of Municipalities. The program gave us training on the essentials of municipal government with segments on our responsibility as board members, the public expectations as board members, balancing our elective life and your personal life, working together as a group, working on conflict resolution for the better good. And financial and fiduciary responsibilities are an important part of what the Board of Aldermen or Town Council do, as well as being transparent and ethical. Our first training was held in Kannapolis, and then after the COVID shutdown, we had the next year's training or the next cycle training available as a webinar, and we participated virtually as a board at our Spencer office town hall. Following each election, the winning candidates are required to take that training. For newly elected officers coming in this coming year, the training will be offered as a 2-day seminar with the dates and locations to be determined, but it's generally held in different locations across the state. I was sworn in at the first meeting in December in 2020 for the first time, and one of the first things that we decided was who would serve as the mayor pro tem. That is a stand-in for our mayor when they can't be where they need to be for another reason. And in my first term, Sharon Hovis, the first African-American to serve as a board member in Spencer, was our mayor pro tem. In 2021, she opted not to run again, and our mayor pro tem was the highest vote getter of the 6 elected aldermen, a well-known, loved, and respected retired teacher, Patty Sechrist. And there are lots of folks who know Patty and love her dearly. Our current board consists of 3 retired members, 1 member who works part-time, 2 fathers with small children working at full-time jobs and serving our town. Our mayor has 3 young children, and he also works full-time, and most of the group have other family responsibilities too. I only answer to my dog. But he is very, very demanding, I will say. 3 of the 7 serving the citizens of Spencer are in their late 30s or early 40s. We need young people, we really do. It takes a lot to be a town council person, and the fact that I can do so much because I am retired is helpful, but we need to keep our towns and our neighborhoods moving toward the future, so we need young people to get involved. At the first meeting, we had given our mayor a list of the interests that we had, and I don't know if this works everywhere in all the jurisdictions, but we gave him a list of the things that we were most interested in, and he attempted then to pair us with the assignments that matched our interest and our availability. So here's where I talk about my personal commitments to this job. Each town or city in Rowan County has different numbers of elected officials. From the information that I was able to determine from the County Board of Elections website, across the county, I believe there will be 44 open seats for municipal elections to be filled this year. That includes mayor positions and city council members or aldermen, alderwomen positions. And for the record, there is no difference between a town council person or an alderman. It's just the way the charters are written for the towns. Some of the seats will be 2-year terms, some will be 4-year terms. Some of the municipalities have staggered elections. For the first time this year, Spencer will be starting with staggered terms, which I think is a good thing because it gives us continuity. This year, the top 3 vote getters in the Spencer Municipal will get a 4-year term. The other 3 will get a 2-year term, and then going forward, the terms will be for 4 years, but will be staggered. It helps to have continuity on the board. You know, we started all over in 2019 with all new people, pretty much all new people, and it takes a while to get up to speed. But we did have a municipal election at our last election to determine whether to go to 4-year terms or stagger or leave them as 2-year terms. And for the first time, our mayor will be elected to a 4-year term in the history of Spencer. In Spencer, we have 2 set meetings each month, a pre-agenda meeting that's always held on the Thursday before the second Tuesday, which is our regular board meeting. We also have board members assigned to various committees such as the schools, the community appearance, the library, community events, metropolitan planning, and transportation. My assignments include being a liaison to our planning and zoning board, so I attend their meetings the second Monday of each month. I attend meetings of the Rowan Economic Development Council on the second Thursday of each month. I attend Rowan County Chamber of Commerce events at various times during the month. The Central Line Council is one of my assignments, and that is a meeting that is held once a quarter. The Rowan County Municipal Group is another group that we attend, and that is held at various times, usually I think once a quarter. Right now, the Granite Quarry town clerk is the one who is organizing that meeting for elected officials from across the county. And then I attend other organizations that I'm invited to. I have attended the Mornings at the Stone program from Livingstone College all this year, Powers and Partnership Breakfast, which is part of the chamber. And then I go to all the Spencer community events that I can possibly fit in, as well as going to neighboring community events. And so I see some of you folks at a lot of these different places. I guess there's nothing better than name recognition when it comes to having your name on a ballot. I've joined the mailing list for the North Carolina League of Municipalities and the UNC School of Governments, and several other sources of resources that are available for information for elected officials. And it seems like I get messages several times a week. My email always stays full, but I get messages from those folks about things that I need to read or things that I need to be made aware of. And so I try to be sure that I read and participate in all of those that are important and pertinent to the work that I'm doing. On a personal level, I keep my Tuesday mornings open for breakfast with a family member. And on Wednesdays of each week, I'm dedicated to be a grandma, a great grandma for my two twin great grandbabies who turned 2 in February. And believe me, that is a day that I enjoy, but I'm exhausted at the end of the day. It's not easy chasing 2 twins when you're 73 years old. But I wouldn't take anything for that opportunity to be with them and watch them grow up, even if they give me a cold. I chased one with a runny nose all day last Wednesday. Her mama said she had allergies. I don't think it was allergies. But anyway, in addition to that, I serve on the board of the ERA NC Alliance, and that is an organization that Jeffrey mentioned. We're working hard to try to get the Equal Rights Amendment. It has been ratified because we have met the needed 3/4 of the states to have signed on to it, but it's never actually been published because our former president had his instructed them not to publish it. So we're also working at the North Carolina level to take a look at all the laws that have that are not gender neutral, and to try to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified by the North Carolina General Assembly. Thank you, Elijah. It's been something that I've been working on for probably 30 years. I started that early in my career with Business and Professional Women, because that was equal rights under the law has been at the top of the agenda for the North Carolina Business and Professional Women since the early 40s. So we have consistently kept that at the forefront. I serve also on the boards of the North Carolina Business and Professional Women's Club as their legislative chair for the state, and serve on their foundation as the foundation treasurer, and completed last year as their scholarship chair for 2 years. Then I also represent you all here in Rowan County on the state North Carolina Democratic Party's SEC. And I have a meeting with them this afternoon that's online. It starts at 2 o'clock. So as a public servant, our personal information, our phone numbers and contact information is a matter of public record. I don't get a lot of calls from my citizens, but I always investigate and try to find out an answer to any request or concern that's communicated to me. Each board member must decide for themselves whether they're on call 24 hours a day, or if they set boundaries about when they'll answer phones or answer emails. Spencer's chartered as a council manager form of government. Not all municipalities are, but we are, and we have a professional town manager, which the Board of Aldermen hires. Our town manager is then tasked with presenting the board with recommendations and responsible for day-to-day operations. As a board, we work together with our citizens and staff on the strategic plans for the community, and we make decisions on policies, adopt ordinances, and decide to a great extent how the money coming into our coffers gets spent. So we have that responsibility to be sure that we're spending our tax dollars wisely, and spending the grant money that we have been able to attain in a judicious fashion, to be sure that we're serving the needs of our communities. Beginning in the spring each year, the town manager and the finance director begin looking at the needs that are put forward from our board, our staff, and our department heads to develop a budget. And since this is a reevaluation year, we're looking to see how the county-wide evaluation will impact our tax base. Along about this time every year, though, we adopt a budget for the year, which must be balanced, and it has to be approved by June 30th. Spencer's budget for this year is going to be just over $5 million. If need be, we can call for a special meeting anytime that we need to, provided we give advance notice, except in case of emergency. as a board member, we're the ones who take the heat from our citizens when there are problems. There are very limited things that can be discussed in closed settings, so our meetings are always open to the public. They're recorded and they're available to watch on YouTube. And every meeting has time set aside for public comment. We can't comment at the time about the public comment or the things that come to us, but we can address those by adding those to our agenda to be discussed either later in the meeting or at a following meeting. Our board members may not always agree, but like a dysfunctional family, we have to look at the concerns that come to us and make a decision that's the best solution for the community. We're taught in our training sessions that we should give praise in public and criticize in private. I try my very best to go to all of our meetings informed about the issues that are on our agenda. I try to be sure that I have done my research so I can prepare to ask questions that I think ask for clarification. I think if there's something that I'm wondering about in that information, that probably the citizens of my community have the same questions. And so I ask questions. I think that may be why we have our pre-agenda meetings now, so that I can ask those questions and the people can be prepared to come back with answers at our board meeting. But I do try to be sure that, you know, I'm asking the right questions and getting the information that our citizens need. Serving as an alderman for Spencer takes a real commitment from me, but it's also very rewarding. We've been able to see a lot of progress in the last few years in Spencer where things had stalled for some time. Some prior boards were so filled with contention and fighting they couldn't get much else done. But I believe that through the vision of our mayor and our willingness to work together, Spencer is a better community and poised for good growth for our future. If you care about your community, I would encourage you to consider filing for one of the offices up for election. If you don't like the way things are being done, run for office. We need diversity of every type to build for the future of our neighborhoods. If you don't think running for office is for you, then look around you and find somebody that you think would make good decisions for your town and support them. You can support them by working with their campaign. You can support them by donations. You can hand out literature for them. You can do a lot to help someone that you feel like it will be a good candidate if that's not you. There are likely open spots on boards and commissions, and that's a good way to get your feet wet. So take a look at those opportunities in your community. My theme has been and always will be, get involved. You live here. So help a candidate by volunteering or making a small donation. You can make a difference. So get involved. Thank you.